The year ahead appears to be laced with high expectations as massive investments in aircraft acquisition will be yielding fruits. The federal government would also be driving home its aerodrome concessioning process and, of course, its planned establishment of a national carrier expected in the first quarter of 2022. Plans and aspirations for the new year is our focus on this edition. A warm welcome to Aviation this week on Channels Television. Thank you so much for joining us on this first edition in 2022. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi, and our flight is set for takeoff. Aviation remains a facilitator of goods and human beings. And in the previous year, it did have its own fair share of trouble, especially in the international sector, as restrictions and the ongoing pandemic continue to impact demand, and this may likely persist in the new year. Where domestic air travel is likely to keep growing, no thanks to the insecurity in the country. But many customers believe the domestic carriers must wake up.
When your customers are coming around, they are complaining and it's unoblivious to you. You seem defensive, like nothing is happening. I think there's a problem. And this is about the aviation industry as a whole. So they really don't care about the customer. Once they make a name for themselves, create a small niche for themselves in the market, they seem to be fine. But I don't think that's the way forward because we just need to solve this problem. Increasingly, people are using the plane to fly, increase banditry on the road. Nobody wants to risk going 6 hours on the road, going 12 hours on the road. Why should I do that when I will get there in 5, 10, 20 minutes, 1 hour, and that's it. People need to resolve to this form of transportation, and I think the federal government just needs to be to recognize this, and they really need to pay attention to it, because if they are paying attention, they will know that this is a market that really can boom beyond what it is, and who knows, things can just improve from there if they are willing, if they are ready,
2022 is also likely to see domestic carriers take delivery of their multi-billion naira aircraft orders and new leases that would help them to bolster their operations. Nigeria's fast-growing airline Ibom Air inked a deal with European aircraft maker Airbus to buy 10 A220 jets at the Dubai Air Show. At the same air show, Overland Airways is also said to have placed orders for 3 new E-175 jets, plus 3 purchase right aircraft worth about $300 million. So far, Airpeace has taken delivery of 5 new Embraer 196 jets and is expected to take delivery of the remaining 8 this year.
Our airlines ordering brand new aircraft. It was a thing of joy to see the airlines, and you can see some new routes coming out from these 2 airlines now, Akure to Owerri, and some other routes, and I'm happy for that. Again, from the public side, that's where we have an issue. You have the construction of the airport still wrapped up in controversy, though the government is pushing on, and also we have the issue of the national carrier. Then also you have the aviation university. For me, why throw that money in aviation in university when you can put that money together and add to what you have in NCAT and make NCAT a world-class standard? So I think some of the things we need to address in aviation.
The federal government has been working on the concession of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja, the Port Harcourt International Airport, and the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport. The concession of these 4 aerodromes has reached an advanced stage. Away from the airport concession, the federal government is also optimistic of floating the national airline in the first quarter of this year.
There will be timing, because we are going into the election year. So 6 months from now, people will start politicking and doing the election. Does he have that much time to be able to see implement some of this initiative, which, by the way, they are laudable initiative. But I personally think I'm worried for time and implementation. So that will see that the aviation industry shaping up, and they are rushing to try to see what they can do in the little time they have from the Ministry of Aviation. But again, in the international community, I see Nigeria taking a strong stance with how we are being treated, with bilateral service agreements, with our treatment from the West as regards to red listing and bans.
The Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria is also set to set up Nigerian Eagle, which is expected to replace Arik Air, which has been under its receivership since 2018. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority also says that there are many new airlines waiting to take air operator certificates.
Influx of more startup airlines coming to the fray. But again, I have an issue with sustainability. Not a lot have been done, domestically to see that airlines can have favorable and sustainable operations. That's left to be seen, because there are some critical infrastructure deficits and issues that need to be sorted out.
The new year appears to be taking on an interesting look and may also be tricky for investors who are ready to take the risk to put their money where their mouth is. It's also a year that many people will be looking up to the federal government and the Minister of Aviation to live up to their promise of delivering key projects that would leave marks on the aviation sector. Our analyst breaks down what should be on the front burner in the new year.
It is our expectation that cost will be a major issue from our own perspective in 2022. What do we mean by cost? We expect rising inflation, so to say. Inflation in what respect? One, we believe government, both state, local authorities, will be more aggressive on tax-related issues, and it affects airline and other ancillary services. We also expect that because of the planned concession by the federal government, the people will now begin to pay for more services, because when the airport is concessioned, there will be investment into the sector. And when the investors' investment into the sector, the investors will want a commensurable payment of services, since it will not longer be directly under the direct control of the government. That is after concession. So we expect that the airport concession will be closed out. We expect that cost of ticket sales will go up. It has not reached that point that we are paying rightly for local travel. Our Naira is still pegged at the USD. And because of the devaluation of the Naira, this will have an impact on the payment for air tickets, because aircraft spares, running maintenance are mostly in dollar form. And this we will expect tickets to go up. And it will also go up because the requirements, on-time requirements for airlines will also increase, because the passengers will demand more as they are paying more. So that's part of our forecast. Another forecast we have is that we believe government is serious, and in this 2022, we can now have our own national carrier, And this is also good because it will help our bilateral air services agreement with nations, and then we can now begin to favorably compete. Government says they will come with 3 to 5 aircraft, maybe probably on wet lease to start off with. We want to see that concerning aviation, because aviation, it remains a catalyst of growth for countries, for economies, for businesses. So government should rapidly ramp up resources, to ensure that the infrastructural needs, requirement, and the strategic development plan for the aviation sector is done quickly. Another thing that we want our administrators to focus on, especially government, is the signing or renewals of bilateral service agreements. We have seen the problem that has been ensued because of the diplomatic role between ourselves and the United Arab Emirates, based on Emirates and our local flights. So that is a major thing to look at. We've seen that we have not been patriotic enough to sign good bilateral air service agreement. There used to be an excuse that we don't have a national carrier. But now, if they come with a national carrier, there won't be an excuse, to not sign good patriotic BASA agreements, and at the same time support our local airlines to compete favorably. Another thing that we want the government to focus on is that they must get this concession right. There should be no excuse not to do this properly. It's a 1 in a million chance to get our aviation right. So the concessioning must be done with integrity and with patriotic mindset, so that the country benefits largely after this concession. We have to be able to be the hub in West Africa. Our airports, we have the resources, we have the strategic mindset to plan properly. We have to outpace, airports in Ghana and other West African countries, So the government has to be very patriotic concerning this concessioning, and they should do it also quickly. Another thing that we want this time to airline owners and promoters, local airline owners and promoters, we want to encourage them that together, through collaboration, cooperation, they will make more monies for themselves.
Airlines and leasing firms are rushing to permanently convert old passenger jets into freighters, betting on a boom in e-commerce as the value of used planes tumbles amid the pandemic. This is now creating a huge opportunity for passenger-to-freighter conversion companies, including Singapore Technologies Engineering, Israel Aerospace Industries, and US-based aeronautical engineers. Aviation analytics firm Cirium expects the number of passenger-to-freighter conversions globally will rise by 36% to 90 planes in 2021 and to 109 planes in 2022.
Lately, I believe that the cause is the COVID-19, we figured out that the freighters kept the channel of life in the world, and there was increasing in the demand of conversion. Well, most of the economy now in the world is done by e-commerce.
The P2F conversions are a step beyond the cheaper temporary conversions many airlines have implemented during the pandemic, which remove passenger seats to carry more cargo. Permanent conversions are a financial bet that air freight demand, which was weak before COVID-19, will remain strong for years to come as shoppers turn to e-commerce. The airline industry estimates it will take until 2024 for passenger traffic to recover to 2019 levels.
About 50% of air freight is typically carried by passenger aircraft bellies. As a result of COVID, this capacity has reduced substantially overnight because of the grounding of the fleet, especially the international fleet. As a result, in the last few months, we have seen an increased interest in demand for dedicated freighters. A significant amount of inquiries have come in with regards to our Airbus 320, 321, and 330 passenger-to-freighter conversions. We expect the interest for dedicated freighters to continue to be strong in the coming years because of the decrease in capacity offered by passenger aircraft. In addition, in the existing freighter fleet, there are a number of older aircraft types that are being retired, including the A300 and the Boeing 757.
The conversion boom is also helping aviation maintenance, repair and overhaul groups offset some of the lost business from the decline in passenger flights. Boeing said cargo yields had risen by 40% through September because of the pandemic-related passenger disruptions, and it forecasts more than 60% of freighter deliveries over the next 20 years will be conversions rather than new wide-body freighters like the 777.
When Aviation This Week returns, our feature is next. Thousands of flights within the United States were delayed or cancelled at the beginning of the new year, adding to the travel disruptions brought about by adverse weather and rising cases of the Omicron coronavirus variant.
Omicron is going to have a small effect on airlines in terms of their financial results. As much news as it's getting, and as unpleasant as it is for the tens of thousands of passengers who've been affected by these disruptions, I don't think it's going to cause the airlines a lot of financial damage. However, Omicron is not building trust in airline travel. Omicron just reinforces in a lot of consumers' minds that airlines are not well-run businesses. The flight cancellations are frustrating for everybody. Obviously, they're frustrating for the passengers who are affected, and they're frustrating for the airline employees who are not able to work and not possibly able to earn that paycheck because of it. And it's frustrating for the airline employees who are dealing with these frustrated passengers.
Over 9,000 flights within the United States or entering or departing were either cancelled or delayed. The Christmas and New Year holidays are typically a peak time for air travel, but the rapid spread of the highly transmissible Omicron variant has led to a sharp increase in COVID-19 infections, forcing airlines to cancel flights as pilots and crew quarantine.
Too long, and there is no space to spend the time and something to eat, so it's a long time here.
30 minutes, but I can handle that. I mean, as long as I'm not spending the night here, I'm good.
Away from the United States, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority is appealing to passengers at home to exercise restraint over flight delays, especially when it's weather-induced, as safety remains the overall objective of air travel.
That's what we call weather minima. Okay. Now, for every airport, it differs from airport to airport. Why? Because some airports are what you call, that rely strictly on what they can see with the eye. We call it visual flight route. That is instrument. Instrument in the sense that there are navigational aids installed in that particular airport, which can help the pilot or the flight coming in to be able to locate, have its bearing, and be able to put down the plane safely. It's not in some airports. But whether it's something that is moving. So that is the essence of those delay and announcing and fixed time. In a range of 30, 35 minutes or 40 minutes, it will move away from your head to another place. So if they are going to shift it forward, they shift it with that range, hoping that it's going to move away. Now, why must you have the weather information before you pick up the flight? It's not just about, in fact, the weather information you are having now, getting acquainted with, is of the route, the flight path you are going to go through, and the destination. The route may be good and the destination may not be okay for landing at that time. Then you begin to wonder, but Lagos is very clear, it was sunny, why are we not going? Is the route or the destination point? And so if it's not okay for you, you wait till when it will be okay.
Science and transportation will come to order.
At a United States Congress hearing last month, the head of the Flight Attendants Union in the United States made a plea that regulations should be set that would better help airline employees manage unruly passengers before they cause problems on airplanes.
And United continues to fly vaccines around the world.
We need to ban to-go alcohol. This is a major issue. And alcohol is being pushed on passengers now today more so as we are in the pandemic than before. This started with to-go alcohol because of pandemic serving procedures, and they determined that this was a moneymaker, and they are pushing it now in the airports. And that is unacceptable because it is at the expense of our safety.
A flight simulator is a device that artificially recreates aircraft flight and the environment in which it flies for pilot training, design, or other purposes. It includes replicating the equations that govern how aircraft fly, how they react to applications of flight controls, and how the aircraft reacts to external factors such as air density, turbulence, and wind shear. In the East African country of Kenya, a -8 Q400 simulator has been installed to help train pilots. It's a move its main user, Kenya's first low-cost airline, Jambo Jet, hopes will help it cut costs incurred by flying pilots abroad for training.
So it's by international, the coordinates are correct.
The simulator in operation is based on a 2019 deal between FSI, Kenya Airways and Jambo Jet. Kenya Airways is the country's national carrier, while Jambo Jet is its no-frills subsidiary. FSI is among the world's leading producers of flight simulators.
So do you see where this arrow is?
Chief pilot Michael Kwinga of Kenya low-cost airline Jambo Jet climbs into a newly operational Flight Safety International -8400 simulator. After the required checks and under the watchful eye of Flight Inspector Joseph Strong, Kwinga takes off.
As you can tell, if I'm training to go to Dubai International, I can actually do it over here.
It has enhanced navigation system, it has enhanced visual system. So the learning experience for this particular simulator here in Nairobi is quite fulfilling. As a flight crew member also as well, who is based over in Nairobi, it means less travel time, obviously, for me to be able to quickly move from the working line operations and the line environment to come to their training environment at the ease of me just driving over here in Nairobi without having the extra travel, and be able to quickly turn around back onto the flight line to continue with normal flight operations.
Jambo Jet's new fleet of 5 de Havilland Canada DHC-8 aircraft, known as -8 around the world, are critical parts of the regional airline strategy to recover from the job and pay cuts it had to make as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The blow to African airlines after the COVID-19 outbreak was forecast at $40 million by International Air Transport Association IATA last year. For Jambo Jet, the equipment is a cost saver.
Whenever the trainings are done outside, you end up having lower productivity because you have to the traveling time outside there, and even sometimes missing the slots. Sometimes to get the slots was quite difficult. So when it is in here, it brings in efficiencies. The cockpit crews, pilots' productivity is higher, and it's cheaper in terms of you don't pay any hotels, you don't pay any travel.
Kwinga and his colleagues will continue to train for the 6 destinations they currently fly to, and the company is making plans to expand its routes. Jambo Jet began operations in 2014, and its simulator agreement is also open for business to other industry players. Within the vast grounds of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, Nigeria, the reality full flight simulator configured for the AW139 helicopter is installed at Carverton's Training Center. Here at the site acceptance event of the simulator, a French delegate and the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority take the simulated flight, traveling through the world of technology to Marseille and back to Lagos. The Thales Reality H Full Flight Simulator Level D, which is one of the world's most advanced commercial helicopter simulator, will be used to provide superior scenario-based flight and mission training to AW139 helicopter operators across the African continent, as well as Carverton's pilots and crew. With this simulator, Carverton will deliver state-of-the-art training, including initial type rating, recurrent training, and proficiency checks for both visual flight rules and instrument flight rules, offshore and onshore missions, as well as VIP operations to unprepared landing sites. This simulator will enable pilots to become certified to fly the AW139 on the various Civil Aviation Authority approvals. With this significant investment and with the support from Thales, a globally renowned company, we believe that the simulator will ultimately benefit our customers and increase accessibility to world-class flight simulation trading.
This is where our flight lands. It's bye for now. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi.